you also the CCG to invite me to this very prestigious conference. I will focus more on points China's COVID exit and reopening or opportunities for the European economies. So first of all, about the measures. Yeah, actually, we know that on November 10th and also December 7th, the Chinese government issued 20 and also 10 measures to optimize the prevention and also control of the COVID-19. Actually, in particular, I have to mention, to these inbound personnel. The first is to cancel the circuit breaker mechanism for inbound flights. The second is to reduce the number of nuclear exit tests before boarding. And the third is to transfer important inbound business personnel to the isolation and also close the management area point to point. And the fourth is to adjust the positive criteria for inbound personnel. And the fifth, actually is isolation measures for inbound personnel has been adjusted for so-called 7 days of centralized isolation plus 3 days of home health monitoring to 5 days of centralized isolation plus 3 days of home isolation. All these kind of release measures, which I think has greatly facilitated the exchanges between the European and also Chinese personnel, and is conducive to promoting the bilateral economic trade, investment, and also personal exchanges, which hit by the COVID-19 pandemic. Yeah. Also on December 4th, we all know that delegation composed of the head of the Zhejiang Provincial Department of Commerce and also entrepreneurs has already started a so-called 6-day European business trip, which is no doubt very, I think, positive news for us. Also, I think for the people from European side, especially for business people from Europe to China, I think it's really a very good news. Yeah, like the person in charge of the enterprises participation in the activity said that a meeting in person is worth 1,000 emails. Yeah, so that no doubt really good news to both sides. Second, some words about actually the status quo of EU-China relations. As previous speakers include Dr. Cui has already mentioned that we all know that status quo of recent bilateral relationship between China and EU shows so-called the warm economy and the cold politics. And one of these is, very symbolic, is the frozen of the ratification of CAI by European Parliament, and also we all know quite a lot of other, measures which actually give a very negative impact to the Sino-EU relations. But however, the bilateral trade and economic cooperation showed very strong growth. According to the statistics, from January to August of this year, bilateral trade and economic activities grow by 8.8%. And if we have a look of outwards FDI from both sides, which grow also by 121%, and the China-EU, Railway Express was also on in increase. We all know nowadays, actually, the China-EU Railway Express has already reached about about 120 180 cities and in 23 countries in Europe. Yeah, we all know that nowadays, especially with the influence of the U.S. Inflation Reduction Act, quite a lot of European investors has just moved to not only to U.S. but also to China and to other countries. Yeah, so which I will say that, especially with the visit of German Chancellor Olaf Scholz and also the President of the European Council, Charles Michel, to China, expressed the European side's opposition to decoupling and bringing the supply chain from China. Instead, they advocate that both sides should strengthen communication and also cooperation, reduce misunderstanding, also misperception, and promise to promote KAI, which would all be beneficial to bilateral economic and trade exchanges, as especially as China eases COVID-19 control measures. And third point, which I want to say, is as think tank, I think we have quite a lot to do, especially with the ease measures against COVID-19, especially for the new year. We could do quite a lot of things. Well, first, I think both sides, especially at the platform of bilateral think tanks, we could consult both the policymakers of each side and the realities, especially in the fields of, economic and trade and investment, in discrepancy of both sides. Especially, for example, in our center, we have do quite a lot of empirical research about the discrepancy between China and EU. And also we calculate quite a lot of these so-called export similarity index and also ICA index. These kind of empirical studies could give quite a lot of support to support the bilateral economic relations, I think. Yeah. Second, I think we can also do quite a lot of work to promote or to, bettering or to reduce the misunderstanding and the resistance between both sides to improving the atmosphere for bilateral cooperation and also public opinions. I think public opinions here is always playing a very important role for the bilateral relations. Yeah, and third, I think we can also give some suggestions to the policymakers, both sides, especially in the fields of such as climate change, such as the digitalization, RA, and also, provide consultancy to policymakers to how to improve the bilateral economic cooperation, especially, for example, how to implementation quite a lot of measures which actually already exist in the KAI, although the KAI is now frozen. But when we have a look at the details of these kind of points, which both sides have experienced 7.5 years, 35 rounds negotiated points, why we do not do these kind of very detailed and concrete measures to promote, at least at the economic fields or at the level of entrepreneur or enterprises, both sides. So I will stop here. Thank you very much.